Yo, in this video I'm going to talk about the Zed vs Yone matchup. I'm a Challenger Zed one trick on EU West who peaked 1200 LP this season. If Zed matchup guides and montages interest you, do subscribe since I'll be making those kind of videos for now. I also stream Grandmaster Challenger EU West Zed gameplay on Twitch during most evenings, so feel free to check out the description for that. I'll first give my thoughts on the best runes and summoners to take and why. After that, I'll talk about some tips and tricks against Yone that you can utilize throughout the game, starting from level 1 and going upwards. Finally, I'll talk about the best skill, max order and item builds against Yone and wrap up my final thoughts. So let's get into it. For runes against Yone, I think First Strike is the best. However, Conqueror is also pretty good. I used to take this page a lot against Yone and it went well. It should still be good. We used to go Electrocute before the Z damages were nerfed in the early game. That was pretty good against Yone. It still should be okay. However, I believe First Strike is the best page at the moment against Yone. Mainly because he's quite a squishy champ, but he's not only squishy, you can also land your abilities on him quite easily due to how his kit works, which I'll talk about later on in the video. So we go First Strike, then we go Magical Footwear, because it's better than these two runes of course. Futures Market, we could go Minion Dematerializer, this is optional, or preference rather. If you go Dematerializer, you're going to want to use the things on the cannons to push the cannon waves, but I usually go Futures. And then Cosmic Insight, since it's better than those runes. Secondary runes, you have multiple options here. Going Transcendence and Scorch will give you the most damage in the early game sort of thing, or early game power, so to speak, and it will help you out there. Your Adaptive Armor. And a secondary option that I've been trying recently, and I think it's pretty good for the scaling, is Presence of Mind for the scaling on that one. And then Last Stand, since it buffs your damage, which means that when you get more items, you're going to deal more damage from Last Stand. So this is sort of a wildcard rune, but it does scale pretty well in the late game. If you are proccing this rune, you are going to notice the damage. At least I kind of noticed a little bit of the damage there. And of course Adaptive Armor. But in the VOD that I'm going to show, I went Transcendence and Scorch. For summoner spells against Yone, I like to go Flash and Ignite. I think Flash is very important, because Yone's ult outranges yours, so there are instances where you have no W and he has his E and his ult, and he can ult you from outside your range, and having Flash there is actually pretty useful. But I think it's pretty important to have Flash. Ignite is more optional, either Ignite or Teleport. I think Ignite is better because the way Yone is, you can land a lot of spells on him. And Teleport, it's fine, but I think Ignite, with the kill pressure, you should be killing this Yone, I think, pretty early on one item. You know, Hydra, Dirk, Double Longsword, you should start killing the Yone a lot more. If you have First Strike, and if you have Conqueror, you'll probably kill him earlier than that. But yeah, I think you have a good kill pressure on him, so taking Ignite is decent. And I like it the most, so Flash and Ignite for the summoners. Level 1 against Yone, you want to be really careful. You don't want to push the wave because Yone wins extended trades against you. So instead of pushing the wave, you want to chill back, farm with Q. If he walks up, you can decide whether or not you want to take an auto attack or a Q from him if it re-aggroes the minions in your favor. Otherwise, just stay out of his range, use your Q range to farm or poke him, and let the wave come into you. It's important that you don't shove the wave, otherwise you'll get zoned off and he will beat you down since he's stronger in these early levels. So this is generally how you want to play until level 3 or level 4. I like waiting for level 4 or 5 since it lets me get some more points into my queue. But until then, you just want to play like that. Once you have all your spells though, a good trading pattern against Yone is actually using your W backwards. So if you use your W forwards, then he can use his E to dodge your Qs, which is why I don't like using W forwards in this matchup. You want to let Yone stack his Q, since when Yones have their Q3 ready, they usually like to either EQ onto you, which is the most common one I think, or walk up and simply Q on you. But when he uses his Q3, you can see the Yone animation where he steps back for a moment. That's when you know he's 100% locked in place and you know exactly where he's going to land in the next second, right? Right after his dash. This way you can line up the Qs, so you can walk up when he has his tornado, or rather his Q3, and let him E and then Q. You don't want to walk up too far, you want to be in his EQ range. And when you see his E, you know the Q's coming, right? So you just wait for that little animation where he moves back a bit and then he goes forward. And you place the W behind you, right outside of his Q3 range. And then you throw the Qs and just take your W when he's mid-air. That way, your Qs are going to hit him and he is not going to hit anything on you. Because then, after that, you just run away and he can't catch you because you use your W backwards. I think that this is the most consistent and good trading pattern to take against Yone, mainly because his E also has a similar cooldown to your W, so you're essentially trading your W for his E, which removes a lot of his threat. And so when your W is down, there's still downtime for him as well. After level 6, however, this trading pattern becomes a bit worse because he has his ult, which outranges you. So if you imagine the pattern again, you'll be running away with no W, and his ult outranges yours, so he might be able to ult you, which would allow him to chase you down. So you need to be careful about using this trading pattern after level 6. However, you're just going to want to scale up a bit more. Since we have a first strike here, we're going to want to get Hydra and Dirk and a couple longswords, and then we can start fighting the Yone. However, if you want to fight him after level 6, it's also fine, I think, as long as you have recalls, in my opinion. After first recall, if you have like a Warhammer, a pickaxe, something like that, maybe Warhammer longsword or pickaxe longsword, you can fight the Yone, because his Q, just take into mind, his Q3, his ult, and his E2 puts him exactly in a spot that you know he's going to be, which means you can always line up all your Qs onto that spot, doing any of those sort of interactions. Also, his E1 does keep him in sort of put him into a place that you know he's going to be. Although he can go in any direction, as soon as he uses his E1, you can also sort of pop out all your Qs at once on that place that he went, because his snapback has a sort of delay to it as well. So using those things, that's how you want to fight after level 6. Something I forgot to mention is, when you're melee range against Yone, you can use your movement to dodge his Qs usually. Think a bit from his perspective and the cooldown of his Q, and when he's going to Q. And your melee range, sometimes it's better not to just auto attack him off cooldown, but instead of auto attacking, just move like a bit left and right if you're stuck melee range against a Yone when you think he's going to Q, and then he's going to miss his Q a lot of the time actually. So that's one way to sort of juke his Qs when you're melee range. I think it's pretty good. The way you want to change up the trading pattern from earlier is, instead of using your W backwards when he Q3s onto you, you're going to want to use your W forwards to the side, especially if he used his E first. So place your W to the side where his Q3 wouldn't hit. Throw the Qs out as he's mid-air. Throw them on the location that you know he's going to land after seeing his little step back on his Q3 animation. That way you'll hit both Qs, you'll dodge his Q3, you can walk up to him then, auto E, and then start sidestepping with the tip I just said. As he tries to fight back with you, if he doesn't try to fight back with you, he will take his E1, or he'll take his E back, and you win the trade. If the trade gets extended, then you can keep trading back usually, as long as you try your best to dodge his Qs. If you dodge another Q, then it's like really good, because then he will definitely lose the trade. Otherwise, when he snaps back, you can decide whether or not you want to time your ult with his snapback, or just ult to follow his snapback to finish him off. And usually that's how the 1v1 goes. It's usually how I like to 1v1 against Yone. Apart from that, I like to wait for teammates to sort of gank the Yone and kill him that way. Although to be fair, the 1v1 thing, I think you do need some more items. You can't just do it with... If you have First Strike, you can't just do it before you have, I'd say, like Hydra and Dirk, right? If you have Conqueror, you can maybe do that when you have Warhammer and Pickaxe. It's a bit different with the runes, because I think Conqueror gives you more power earlier on with the 1v1s. So you have to take that into mind. In the side lanes, you just want to shove the wave. It's quite classic and normal thing for Zed to do. Shove the wave, go into fog, and then just wait, or like sweep around, look around, check the camps, and then usually on the next wave, Yone is going to walk up to try and clear it, but you're going to be in the bush, so you can decide from there whether you want to try to kill him or not. If he uses his Q3 and there's no minions left or something, then that could be a good idea to engage on him and try to kill him. You usually want to open with WQE, or sorry, WQW, auto E, or WEQ and take your W and go in. I like doing WW, auto E, so I get the next W up quicker. But you can decide. The main thing is using your W first, because you don't want to just open with ult, since he can ult you, and then he can use his E as well, and then that would mess things up, because you don't want Yone to ult you when you don't have your shadows out. That is the main thing. Other than that, in the teamfights, you usually have the advantage against Yone. Many of his abilities are telegraphed, so it's not only you who's gonna have a good time using the spells on the Yone, in my opinion. If the Yone doesn't get a good ult from a decent range, he usually does get kind of beat down in the teamfights, so you can play towards that, at least compared to how a Zed gets, you know, beat down. Zed doesn't really get beat down in the teamfights, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Zed is much stronger, so you can just play for the teamfights in the late game, and that's also pretty good. For items, both Longsword Refillable and Longsword 3 Potions are good starts, I think. I like to go Longsword Refillable in pretty much all the matchups, so I go Longsword Refillable. And of course you want to rush Hydra first. It's very important so that you can clear the waves without using your W, and you can run away from the Yone if you need to. Then we go Ionian Boots, although in this matchup you don't need to go Ionian Boots. You can go straight into Duskblade and get Ionian Boots after, because Yone is a squishy champion, which you can kill pretty easily. And if you just don't invest into boots, then it's also pretty good, because you get magical footwear, and you can put all your gold into the items, and I think you do much better against Yone with items. On every item you kind of just outscale him, slowly but surely. So we go Duskblade second. I think Duskblade second in general is better against Yone, because even when you're ahead, because he's very squishy, you can kill him very easily. It's much easier with Duskblade as opposed to with Black Cleaver, but that's only for the 1v1. For the skirmishes, Black Cleaver would still be better, so you'll have to decide for yourself what you really want to go. But I like going Duskblade second against Yone, and I think it's fine. It's just that you're going to be squishy in the skirmishes, and you got to take that into account. This game, the game ran out. The game ended, so we didn't get further. But after that, I would have gone standard, you know, Grudge or Black Cleaver in any order. It doesn't matter too much. Usually Grudge if you're behind, and then Black Cleaver if you're ahead. However, it still really doesn't matter too much, those two items. As long as you buy them both, it's pretty good. And finish it off with the Edge of Night or Serpents. Very, very classic, very normal Zed build. But that's it for the build. That's it for the items. For the skill order, you want to max Q first, as always. In this game, I kinda misclicked my W. It should be a Q max. And then W second and E third. However, Yone is very squishy, so you can put maybe 2 to 3 points into E if you really want to do that, and it wouldn't be the worst thing ever, because you'd get more burst, and that would be good. I just love W max, so I just max W second straight up, and you want to level your ult whenever you can, of course. In summary, I think Yone is relatively easy for Zed, provided you don't fall behind in the early game, and you play for the team fights later on, as opposed to the 1v1s, because you do much better in the team fights as Zed, in my opinion. Also, on each item you will scale really well against him, so play for the scaling basically. But that is basically it for this video. I hope it was useful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.